hit the present and make sure it loads. Hooray! Hopefully this is showing all of it. So for those of you who I didn't see earlier, I'm Dwayne. I work at a company called Pantheon. I have a background in sales and marketing for the last 12, 13 years of my life. And I love comic books. I love improv, which I'll talk about today quite a bit. I've been doing that for about 7 years of my life. And I love karaoke a lot. Who's coming to Courtside tonight? Courtside, 9 p.m. We're doing Drupal karaoke. We got to do better than Twin Cities. Drupal's going to do it tomorrow. Karaoke tonight. I'm dead serious. Go look on Twitter. Speaking of Twitter, I'm MC Dwayne out there. If you tweet at me, I love it. I love Twitter. And my slides for pretty much everything I do are over at mcdwayne.com, my blog. Who are you? So if you were here through my earlier session, we'll do this again. So on the count of 3, yell out your name. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Great job. And where do you work? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. I got that. And what's your social security number? No. Yes, well, that's the right answer. That is the right answer if anyone ever asks you that question. But who here is a full-time designer? That is what you do. Awesome. Who here is a developer? Awesome. Who here builds websites but does not maintain them? Who here maintains websites but doesn't build them? Nobody. Oh, man. Normally there's somebody, and then you can say, oh, you people should meet. It's a good time. So I'm going to start out with a story of 2 projects. There's a twist to this, but once upon a time there was an agency, and every day they did client work and struggled with it. Until one day they had a client come in that was pretty much too big to deal with. There's too much to chew, but they still took the project anyway. Because of that, they ended up working really long hours. The entire team just got exhausted, and nothing they did satisfied the client. And because of that, the client started just poking back at everything and pushing back on contract. Finally, the shop had to admit, we can't do this project for you. Never got paid. And ever since that day, they have been terrified to take on large-scale projects. And there was a web shop that did any size of project they could get their hands on, and they were good at it. And every day they worked hard but smart and stayed within scope. A client comes along and offers them something that they didn't really know how to do, but they said, you know what, we can figure it out. They did really tight scoping and did a lot of discovery. And because of that, when the client started pushing back on things, wait a minute, calm down. That's not what you originally scoped. That's not what you originally asked for. And my team can deliver what you asked for, but you're asking for other things. Because of that, the client was satisfied with the scope of work. He was never really happy with anything, but paid the contract end of the day. They got the money. The client, took the work, never actually did anything with it, and walked off. Knew that if they stuck to their principles, they would succeed as a business. It's not really 2 shops. That's a shop that got their stuff together. They got their act together. So they figured out how to calm the stakeholder down. They figured out how to rein in unreasonable requests and manage a process. Talk about storytelling. Well, stories. Every single person, no matter what they do, no matter who they are, if you say, name 10 things in your kitchen, 1 out of 10 will actually have a list view in their head of it's this, 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 and this. But 9 out of 10 will physically see their kitchen in their head and say, I got a toaster and a cabinet and a refrigerator, and they'll actually point to where these things are in their kitchen. Because they think. More importantly, we think in moving pictures. We think of stories. When I say think of your kitchen, you're not thinking of an empty, cold room with a refrigerator in it. You're thinking about the time you're sitting around the table and doing something. And you could tell me a story story about your kitchen right now without even thinking about it. It's really important to us from an evolutionary standpoint. Lisa Cron wrote a brilliant book about this, and it boils down to this fact. Stories tell us not to put our hands in fire. Stories tell us to respect nature. Stories tell us, why you shouldn't cross the street. Stories give us all the information we need to survive. Really, really good at thinking in stories. Everything can be broken down into a story. I'm going to tell you 3 stories, and then we're going to talk about 3. Once upon a time, there was a magical land where animals talked to each other and cooperated in some kind of society that worked. We're jerks to everybody. One day, a tortoise stood up and was like, you know what? I'm going to race you, and I'm going to shut you down. Let's get it on. And because of that, all the animals in the valley gathered up. Because of that, of course, the hare gets way out in front because it's a rabbit. And because of that, the rabbit gets cocky and decides to take a nap. Until finally, the tortoise crosses the finish line before the rabbit wakes up and can catch up. Today, rabbits have been taken down a peg in their world. And they're not the cockiest animal anymore. Now the tortoises are. It's problematic. It's a land where humans and gods interacted and had adventures together. And every day, there was this hero named Heracles who would walk around and do stuff. Until one day, he was walking through this very narrow pass, and he sees a golden apple on the ground. And he says, that's Ares's golden apple. That started the Trojan War. This is bad. And because of that, he decides to smite the apple with his club. And because of that, the apple gets bigger every time it gets hit. And because of that, he gets really mad and smashes it again. And because of that, it keeps getting bigger. Until finally, it's so big he can't get through the opening. And he has to go completely around the mountain range. And Dionysus shows up. And he's like, what are you doing, Heracles? If you'd left the apple alone, you'd never had this problem. Don't go looking for trouble. And ever since that day, Heracles doesn't go looking for trouble. And he leaves that golden apples well enough alone. Once upon a time, there was a magical land where teenagers could safely cruise around in a van aimlessly and solve crimes. And every day, they would go on some kind of an adventure and help somebody in need. Stopped at Thelma's aunt's house, where she just happened to own an amusement park. And because of that, they realized there was a ghost causing problems for her aunt. And because of that, they set up an elaborate series of traps, which all failed and was hilarious, until finally, they stumble onto a trap that works, and they take the mask off the guy, and it's old man on the street who's been trying to run her aunt off the property. Ever since that day, they're not scared of ghosts on the amusement park, and the kids are out there solving crimes. So what do these 3 stories and the 2 stories I started with have in common? They, like every other story you've ever heard in your entire lifetime, follow this model. Written down by a guy named Ken Adams, lives in Orinda, California, student of Keith Johnstone. You've ever heard in your life is some iteration of once upon a time, there is a place, there is a setting. And every day there's a series of events that occur regularly. Until one day. But one day, something changes that cycle. And because of that, the series of events happen. Because of that, another series of events happen. There's a resolution, until there's a climax, till something happens. And then ever since that day, there's a new reality. You can chart this against a sine wave. Forgive me for using the word sine wave there. But you can chart it against a wave function, where you have a reality. I don't have a laser pointer. Here it is. You have a reality, and you have a change event that caused there to be a series of events until there's a climax that you settle into the new reality afterward. Think of every movie. Think of the Brady Bunch, Gilligan's Island, 24, literally any TV show or movie you've ever seen. It follows pretty much this model, except Memento, which is just the inverse of it. It goes the other direction. A couple of very interesting things to point out about this. Matt Stone from South Park actually give a whole talk about this concept. But it's not and then. It's not this happened and then this happened and then this happened. It's a thing happened and there were consequences of it. And then there's a new reality where we had to deal with the consequences of that thing. And that caused other consequences, and it kept building. It caused something else to spiral until finally there's something that is just life-changing. This is completely expandable. It can be however short or big you need it to be. There could be one of them, there could be 100 of them. Also completely recursive. Every single point in a story spine is its own story. If it's not its own story, then it's not really a story point. It's contained within another story point that's its own story. Like Heracles. Every day, Heracles it goes in on itself. Not all stories have happy endings. Some stories end very negatively. Some stories just have sad endings. And that's where they are. Some stories seem to be flat, where the once upon a time, this reality and this reality are almost identical. Nothing's really changed. But we still go on a journey to get there. Why am I talking to developers or designers at Design for Drupal about this? Well, career and talk about sales and project management. There's a process you go through. If you sat through this earlier, forgive me. There's a process where you'll get a group of leads, people's names, email addresses. Out of that, there is a bucket of people that can actually pay you, has authority, has a need, has a time frame. That's BANT. There's other models to qualify people with. And from those people, there's a set that you're going to give a proposal to, and from that, there's a certain set that will actually buy something. The other is, well, you collect leads however you collect leads. From there, you have to qualify them using some kind of process. Can they pay you? Have they ever paid anyone before? Do you trust them? Then you go through a discovery process. Discovery is where you find out need. Can the thing you provide actually help them? Is it realistic to work together? Then proposal, procurement, all that good stuff. Is helping them write down and understand what they even want to do. They might have an idea in their head, but they probably don't know how to do that. If they knew how to do that, they probably wouldn't be talking to you in the first place. This great quote from Greg S. Reed. Dream written down becomes a goal. Goal written down, steps becomes a plan. Plan backed by action makes your dreams come true. 100% believe this. I live it every day. If the client knew how to write down their dreams in the first place, it'd be really easy to get a piece of paper or an email to say, I need you to design exactly this that looks exactly like this, and I need it in this dollar amount, and I need it by this date. If life was just that easy, it'd be awesome. Shoe company, and I want more leads. That story, though. But hey, we know how to tell stories. We're really good at it as human beings. We have a formula for this. And what I'm hoping we walk out of this room with is the idea that if you can help a client understand, hey, this is the reality I live in today. There was some kind of change event that made you call me, and you want me to help you get to some kind of project finish so your new reality can be better. Here's the crazy thing. They know exactly how to tell you this part of the story. They probably have an idea of what this is, and they know darn well what this is. No idea what this is. I think my laser pointer just died. Here. They have no idea what this stuff is. And that's what you gotta help them figure out. We'll go through examples on this, but yeah, sorry. I changed my slides for this particular presentation, so a little bit out of order. This works excellent as a framework for these client dreams because, well, you just have to fill in the blanks. It's not a magic of like, hey, I I have to read your mind and understand everything about you as a person, everything about you as a company before I can work with you. It is, help me understand these points, I can fill in the other points, and at the end, we should have a successful project together. As you go through the project, if you've laid this out with them in the first place, like, hey, here's how your story works with me, and they get lost, you can point back to it. You can say, hey, we said that this is probably going to happen, and this is probably going to be a result in the next thing that's going to happen. We're somewhere here, and you want us to be here already. We're only here. Calm down. Allison Manley and Joe Allen Black from Palantir, they give this amazing talk. Actually, they retired it already, but it's called Project Management the Musical. Anybody here see that at DrupalCon? Go watch it online. It's fantastic. But there's a great quote they have that's directly related to this point. A spoonful of research helps the stakeholder calm down, set to the tune of, and it's very true. So here's a story of a company you may have done business with. That once upon a time, there's a company that sells shoes, and every day they can handle about 10,000 orders. Day they realized that if they got 10,001 orders, their system would fall over. Realized this is a bad thing. And because of that, they realized we need a new system. We got to update, rewrite this whole thing. And because of that, they realized we can't do this in-house. This is bad. We got to go up RFP this thing. Through a whole process and get a budget, go through vendor selection until finally they signed a contract with somebody and the work was delivered. And ever since then, they've been able to do 1 million shoe orders a day. This is the story of Zappos. From our perspective, in working with clients, interact with the client is there in the story. How many people, when they start working with clients, like, hey, let's step way back, and you tell me the background of why I'm in this room? I know I have a tendency to say, oh, you want to buy something? Let's get right to the sale. Not, why are you buying this for? What, have you bought one of these before? Do you have any idea what this means? What trying to get to at the end of the day? Like, what's the real goal behind us doing this project together? But like I said earlier, this is expandable and recursive. So let's take a look at just the bullet point of, because they had to find a budget and select a vendor. Look at just the budget process. Once upon a time, project lead managed a number of competing projects, and every day they worked to present without within the preset parameters without issue. Budget, and they could access to hire a vendor. Because of that, they did research. Because of that, CFO and CEO have to be involved in this thing. Because of that, they finally got their act together, got it to upper management. They got a signed off budget. And ever since that day, they were able to keep doing their job. There's a new beginning reality, final reality, an apex which made the new reality possible, and a change event that caused them to go toward that. It wasn't, one day they realized they needed more budget, so the CFO and the CEO signed off immediately. That'd be a great reality. That's not the way this worked. But you know what? We can keep going. This is recursive infinitely. Or almost infinitely. Some basic concepts, but so the research for the budget itself, I'm not gonna read this one to you, but it's just the idea that we can keep doing. We can keep doing this forever. We can keep doing this all day. Pick one of these, we can do a whole nother one on that, probably. Again, you'll get to a point where it doesn't make sense anymore, and you're like using base language. But that is the idea. Back here at my story spine. So, who here has a pen? If you have a pen, raise your hand. Otherwise, I have some pens, but I need your back. This is my random collection of pens in my bag. You're also going to need somebody to work with. So find someone to work with, stand up, introduce yourself. You don't know the person, sit beside you. This is a great time to meet you. Great, you might want to move around. Yeah, anything where anything is you need to tell me. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to. All right, so what are we doing here? Why do you have a piece of paper with a bunch of blanks on it? It's a good question. I'll tell you. So we're going to get down the stairs. It's going rocky. Oh my God, it's too stairs. Gosh. All right, thanks. What's that? Yeah, you can't. I have a hoodie in my host. Anyway, I also have stickers and sunglasses, but we'll save those for another time. Somebody in your group. Oh yeah, let's go. Your question? Oh yeah, no pens. I think everyone has pens. Everyone has pens. Oh yeah. Oh, awesome. Thank you very much. I didn't have to walk out with more pens than I came in with. That's pretty awesome, actually. All right, so you're working with somebody else. So one person in your group raise your hand. Just one of you. Write stuff down first. Whoever raises your hand. So that's cool. All right. The other person, we're going to write something down. We're going to interview the other person. And I want you to think of a real project and put it in these terms. Once upon a time and every day, that is the base reality that when you walked into the door of that project, they told you, this is how our business works. This is what we do every day. And start at the last part. Start with the very beginning, and then after that, do the ever since that day. What's the reality that you helped them achieve? Not the project you delivered, but 6 months after the project, how was their reality impacted? How did that thing work? Then fill it in backwards, or whatever order you want. But I'll be here. I'll turn the mic off and walk around the room if you have questions. But other than that, go. Raise your hand if you have questions. Good. No, there's no bad. There's no bad. This is a brand new idea. It's awesome. Every day. I know it's a slow process. Don't be afraid to fail on this. Embrace it. All right, I'm going to give you exactly a minute and a half from now, so just kind of choke through it. All right. That was a minute and a half. Okay. If you're not done, that is fine. There is no problem with you not being done. But who here actually got through it? Who here actually got what?
We didn't.
You got it? Okay. But you were so enthusiastic, you guys are going to read yours out loud.
That's going to read ours out loud.
All right, so this is, listen up, everybody. They got the floor. Yeah, it's your turn. Read it up. Read it aloud.
Once upon a time, there was a retailer, and every day they sold products in a brick and mortar store. One day, their sales plummeted, and because of that, they decided to sell things online. And because of that, they discovered what they didn't know. That they don't have a necessary experience. And because of that, they realized they couldn't do it on their own. They hired a third-party vendor, and ever since that day, they sold things online successfully.
Good job. Give a round of applause. Give them a break. So, read the first three again. Sorry.
There was a retailer.
Okay.
They sold products in a brick and mortar store.
Okay.
And then one day their sales plummeted.
Why? Do you know why? Sales plummeted?
That wasn't disclosed to me when I was interviewing my subject.
Interviewing your subject. Good. That's how I prefer clients' subjects too. That makes them feel real safe. No, that's really good. Because their very beginning was that brick and mortar store and they sold stuff. And what was there ever since then?
Sold things online successfully.
That's awesome. Good job. This is like the fourth time I've given this talk, and that might be the most succinct story anyone's written down. Because you did it exactly right. We won't dig into it too much because you went first. I'll be gentle with you and just say amazing job. But walked in like, hey, we're selling stuff in a brick and mortar store. We want to sell stuff online. If that's the whole project, that's the whole project. Help them sell stuff online. You're done. All right. So now that you know how the hang of this, you're going to swap. And whoever wrote down now is going to be the interviewer. You know, just swap roles. Do that. And do it again. Flip it over. Flip the page over. I did not come to both sides because at least you get rid of And this time I'm only going to give you 3 minutes. You only got 3 minutes to just blaze through this stuff.
What about dating?
Minute and a half. That's what you got. You got a minute and a half left. Over. Love laser pointers. About a minute left. All right, wrap it up. Make those last scribbles on the page. Heck out of here. 10 minutes. Or less, maybe more. Probably more. All right, raise your hand if you're done. Except for these two. You two are done. All right, good. That saves me some walking. I forgot to say earlier, if you participate, I'll give you sunglasses.
Woo! Incentives.
All right, everybody, wrap it up. If you're not done, that's great. You can keep going after we're done here. I don't mind. Nobody minds. But we're going to give our attention over to these two. I forgot to ask any names. What are your two names, really? Jim. Jim. What? Head. Jim and Head. Everybody, they get Carolyn. And Mike. Carolyn and Mike are going to be our next two here. And I'm going to dig in a little bit more than I did on that first one, just because you're going second. So be prepared for that. But go ahead and let's read it out loud.
All right. So once upon a time, there was a nonprofit organization. And every day, they tried to get more donors and funding to support their efforts. Until one day, they realized that despite all the emails and time spent trying to communicate, their emails were not being read. They looked at their email system and their list of contacts. because of that, they realized that they had so many bounces and bad email addresses in their system that it was causing problems. Because of that, they spoke to outside something, I don't know what I wrote there, vendors, and researched other ways to help solve their communication problems. Until finally, the executives bought into the idea of moving to a new provider. And ever since then, their contact lists have been cleaner, and their open rates and money raised have increased.
All right, so that's a good job first. But let's go back and read the first two lines and then the last line. Like it's in order.
There was a nonprofit organization. They tried to get more donors and funding to support their efforts. And ever since then, their contact lists have been cleaner and their open rates and money raised have increased.
So you got in there like kind of shoved in. Like ever since that day is this, but the positive of that. So what was this one again?
They tried to get more donors and funding to support their efforts.
And ever since then, they got more donors and funders to support their effort.
Indeed.
That's how the future works. Like the more contacts is actually an until finally. The results of what you did. It's not 6 months later. It's a mechanism to get there. People don't buy point solutions. People buy answers to problems and new realities. People will pay you a lot of money if you can make their new reality awesome. For the pixels were 3 points to the left or right. They'll pay you because when they move them to the right, they had 10 times the contacts and the donor money flew in. And you said something else in there. What was the first because of that? That was a great story.
They looked at their email system and list of contacts.
And because of that, they looked at their email system and contacts. How'd they do that? What did they do? You have any idea what they did? Like how they analyzed it?
You know, we looked at the system, looked at how many contacts we had, how many compared to how much emails were being sent, and how many emails were actually being opened to balances, data analysis.
This is where we can get to recruiting. And this is the point I was trying to get to. That sounds like an entire story compacted into itself. How did you get to the realization we needed to do something? Every day we had contacts, and every day we had an email system, and we tried. And ever since then, we realized we needed to do something. There's a whole story in there. And this was any part of a story that you say, wow, there's a lot there. I can dig into that next own story. Do it. It's a good exercise to understand the moving parts because it makes giant complex processes and systems and dealing with negotiations with a lot of stakeholders way easier to manage because you're turning into little bite-sized chunks. When you do a complex sale, is its own story. And if you can master that part of the story, you can move on to the next part of the story. You can live that little story and keep going. But anyway, that was a great job. So, have you walked out of here with any crazy new knowledge? Maybe, maybe not. Get down here. I have some books that I think are really helpful if you are of storytelling a little bit better. It's really small font, but you can go get these slides at mcdwayne.com. Here with 1,000 Faces is probably the best. Story spine comes from. It's the book where he first wrote books, and then his teacher is Keith Johnstone, and Lisa Cron's book's there at the bottom. And again, I'm Dwayne, work at Pantheon, and we'll open up for Q&A. All right. What?
I don't want to miss a question.
Sure.
Are you going to have this slide with the references of the book?
Yeah, that is over mcdwayne.com. Look for this talk.
Okay.
But it's
That's great. I didn't know if I need to write them down.
No, you just go click the links from inside the slides over the website, and it'll take you to Amazon and let you buy them from there.
I love the story spine that we did. Thank you.
Absolutely. Other questions? And that, I'll leave you with a parting thought. Oh, yeah, there's one there.
So I'm thinking that this would be very useful to create case studies.
This, again, the case study tells the story of how you solve something for a company. their beginning state, their end state, and the steps you look along the way. You gotta anonymize some of that. You gotta hold some specifics back, but you're gonna tell a story. You're gonna use stories fine, whether you consciously are doing it or not.
Do you ever find when you're pitching someone a story novel that they want you to go multiple levels deep to the point where it's like you're getting too far into
Yeah.
project?
Yeah. So so I work with infrastructure with Pantheon. So when I'm telling someone like we want to continuous integration workflow, and we get to the point of like, well, you need a continuous integration server like Travis or Circle or Jenkins, and they'll be like, why? Why is that important to this? Can't I just FTP it and push the database forward? I work with WordPress people a lot more than Drupal people, so I get that question legitimately. And you have to stop and like, all right, let's step way back and let's look at the fundamentals of why you need a third-party server or service to go assemble these pieces together. And then you can tell a story of like, this is like before, you know what that's like, and this is life after, where you touch a button and a robot builds it for you in a separate environment along the way. So yeah, occasionally you run into that from a technical perspective. From a sales perspective, all the time. Because people, again, if someone's buying a very large, complex thing that requires multiple stakeholder sign-off, each of those stakeholders really needs to understand the story, and not everybody understands the story the first time through. And there's parts people get stuck on, and then that's where this becomes really useful, because you're like, okay, let's step way back and say, okay, here's the life that you have now, and here's the life you're going to get to, and here's how this one particular piece plays into that, and in a small way, and then that goes into the larger story that I've already told you, and there we go. Is it foolproof? No, absolutely not. I'm not saying anyone's going to go out here and immediately get a zillion times more business. But if anybody's stuck on an RFP, you're like in the hell of going through 75 questions that are completely unrelated that were written by 15 different people. Step back and look at like what's the story they're actually trying to do here? What's the thing they're actually trying to solve? Why are we even in an RFP process? And you'll see like, wait a minute, half these questions don't matter. Only these stakeholders really are the ones that matter. Let's get them on the phone. Let's talk through it. Let's figure out how to get this thing moving forward. Clients are like, I want a green picture, or a green background, picture of my dog at the top of the homepage. There's probably a story there. Like, why do they want that? What's the reality they're trying to get to? They see it's because, or until finally, they think, okay, if I just finally had this thing there, then my life would be better. But if you understand, like, what's the reality they think they're going toward? You can say, that's not going to get you there. Let's figure out what's going to get you there. But a dog on the top of your website and a green background is not going to be it. Is a lot better than saying, no, that's a stupid idea. I'm not doing it, Mr. Customer. Other thoughts? Questions? All right. Oh, yeah.
This other book is called Slay the Dragon, Writing Great Video Games.
What's that?
Slay the Dragon, Writing Great Video Games.
Slaying the Dragon, Writing Great Video Games.
Yes, that's it.
Don't ask a question that didn't already have sunglasses. From you. All right. Now I'm out of sunglasses, so too late. I'm not going to put it on my slide right this minute, but Slaying the Dragon, Writing Great Video Games. Check that resource out. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of Design for Drupal. You know what? Even better than that, tell me your email address and I'll email it to you right now. Oh, hold on just a second. Let me get to the right screen.
Oh, thank you for your help. Thank you. I really appreciate it. No, it's my
Thank
name.
you very much.
It's my name here.
Oh, hold on. I'm not quite there yet.
All right.
I'm not quite ready for you. I got to get to the right interface. And I'm putting my slides here. I'm just going to send you a direct link to the slides instead of
Okay.
making you hunt and peck. So
And I can enlarge them.
yeah,
Okay,
it's
great.
Google Slides.
Oh, good.
So
Okay.
however you do those. Okay.
And voiceover will work on those. So yay.
Good. Yeah, nothing's an embedded image of words. It's text.
It's just my name at Gmail.
Okay. Paul WELL@gmail.com.
Thank you.
Storytelling. Yep, there you are.
Thank you.
Storytell from B. All right, there
Thank
you go.
Very, very much.
Absolutely happy to do it.
A lovely